Jordan, what up, man?
Steve and Jordan show is back for another one. My man, how long? I think it's been, what's it been? A little over a month here, about 6 weeks.
Yeah, it took a little bit of a delay. Had some scheduling, I think maybe it was me, I don't remember, but it's good to connect. I see you're still in Mexico. How's life?
Yeah, still in Mexico, man. It's actually my last day in Mexico. I go back tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to being back in the States. But we had such a good time here. It was about 2.5 months, almost 3 months. We're in Merida, Mexico, in the Yucatan, about 4 hours west of Cancun. Just had a great time, great refresher and breather for the family, decompress. This is like the one time that every event was going to be canceled. How often is that going to happen? So I just decided to jump in, and we've made the most of it, made some great relationships, had a ton of fun, and ready to head home.
I love it. I love that you did that. What was the germination of that? Did you read a book and get inspired? Were you and your wife just like, hey, we wanted to do this for a while, let's do it now? How did this happen?
Yeah, long-standing desire to do some travel for sure. I just love travel. I love a bit of a culture shock, and also kind of going back to my roots to some degree. And again, how often is every in-person event going to be canceled? I mean, that's basically a once and never. As long as I've been doing it, it's never happened. So I just figured, if not now, when?
I know, man. It's so crazy. I miss I would go to any conference. I miss being around people. I miss that.
I feel like the conference complaining was like at its zenith right before all this happened. Oh, I'm not going there. Oh, it's in Hawaii. I wouldn't do that. And now it's like, oh my, if you put on a conference in Waco, Texas, baby, I'm there.
I know.
I'm with you.
I know, it's interesting. You don't know what you got till it's gone, but yeah. So give me an update, man. Give me a personal, professional best. What's going on?
Personal, professional. Personal has just been here, slowing down. I mean, slowing down is probably an exaggeration, but at least taking the time to be here and have this moment, this experience, and this journey for sure. Professional best has been being back in the saddle in a fully engaged kind of way and really enjoying it. Sometimes you're driving hard and it's obligation. Other times you're doing it and it just feels really rewarding. So I've been in a close to a full-on sprint now for a number of weeks, and I'm enjoying it. It's feeling good. I'm getting a good ROI, return on my effort, and that's most definitely been the biggest highlight for sure.
Nice. Yeah, man. Personal for me is I've been kind of in a more like floaty state, like not flow, like I'm in flow all the time, but just like kind of just lighthearted, taking things like as they come, less like regimented. And I think it's a good time to do that with the holidays. I think I always feel less pressure when it gets darker earlier, and it's just like it slows down a little bit, I was like,
for sure,
less pressure on myself to put in X amount of hours or feel like I've done this or that. So I just try to see like how floaty can I get today, man? Like, can I bounce around and just like try to like I normally go to the beach and walk my dog, and I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna jump in with my dog. Let's go swimming, like just like trying to do random shit that I don't normally do and think a little bit like different.
Keeping it loose.
Yeah, just keep it loose, man.
It's great, man.
Which is
like
here, go ahead.
Ebb and flow of life.
Yeah. Definitely not always that way, but that's just kind of like how I'm feeling. So that's my personal and professional. Yeah, it's kind of same with you. Back in it quite a bit, but really enjoying it. Really enjoying it, and really focused this quarter on one thing, which is a new thing for us that we are transitioning to squad. We actually did transition to squad model versus departmental. So it's like a kind of an internal restructuring. And that was the thing this quarter. We said no to everything else, and we put all other issues. If the issue isn't related to move to squad, we put it aside. And this focus has actually been really refreshing. And instead of, because at certain times I run out of something to do regarding squad. And so I'm like, okay, like I need to go into my box of tricks and figure out what other thing I need to start tinkering with. But instead of doing that, I just like would sit and spend time in kind of just thinking mode or stillness or, and so it's been fun, man, staying focused.
Okay, so you're talking about this specific quarter, which we're halfway through. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so too early to tell, or can you talk about any results or outcomes from that transition?
Yeah, it's really funny actually. So we're learning that about 80% of our issues are solved by moving to this model. you talk about big domino, like we're like looking at all these things. We're like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that gets solved under this model, or that should get solved under this model. And I mean, yeah, it is a little early to tell, like it's a huge success, but a big part of the model is putting greater responsibility on people and like, okay, you're responsible for owner happiness. This person's responsible for tenant happiness. Like this person's responsible for the property and things in the field. And you guys are a team. And like, this is your portfolio. And so it's very easy to just be like, okay, well, you got a bad review. Okay, who owns that? Owner. Okay, like, and so it's built in leadership at different levels, which has allowed us to move other key leaders up and be more in a supervisory role. So it's been great, man. I when I first heard it come out, I was like, yeah, that doesn't seem appealing to me. And that's why I kind of didn't act on it. But I really think it's going to be a huge success.
I remember Adam Hooley talked about it at PM Grow, I think in like 2018, somewhere around there. Yeah, and I felt like it resonated with some people and it didn't with others. So you're saying it's maybe solving 80% of issues, but that said, like if you were going to distill down the motivation, what was like the core of the motivation to go through what presumably is quite a bit of disruption and effort?
The motivation was we realized that the model we had wasn't scalable. The departmental, it's a hybrid, but the departmental model, and talking with some people in the industry, like some people that have like big property management businesses that have been doing it a long time in different realms, the kind of consensus was you can't scale that model. It's like super difficult to scale departmental hybrid. And so we want to grow and, we want a model that's very simple. And so, okay, 1,000 units comes in, where do they go? Okay. Like it's very complicated in departmental. It's like, okay, I hire another maintenance coordinator, I guess. And I need 2 more leasing people. Well, it's like, no, you just build another squad. Like you build a half a squad, maybe if it's not a full plate for them. But so it makes it more clear.
That comes off as like very proactive. Was it like purely proactive, or were there some like existing loud pain points that you were also solving for?
That was the main thing where we didn't know who we were going to hire. Like we didn't know where the next 100, 200 units would go.
Got it.
Yeah. And also just talking with people, and like if someone's been 10 years past me and they're saying like, yeah, like we've tried it everywhere from Sunday, it's very difficult to scale that model. So yeah. And we just realized that, it just wasn't working the way it's currently working. So yeah. But the focus thing has just been huge. Have you ever done that? I realized that scaling up teaches that you have like a quarterly theme and you kind of stay true to that like theme for the quarter. It's been really powerful to keep us all aligned.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think I've had that level of focus where everybody is pulling in a specific direction. I mean, we have had times we were launching a new product or, things like that. But so let's on the rock level, for example, is all the rocks that everybody carried related to that this quarter?
Yeah, we let one slide through that had to do with like updating management agreements just because it was like kind of like a risk liability thing. And it was done by the BDM, Adam, which he wasn't really involved in like the operations side. So we let that one slide through. But besides that, yeah. And it just gets me thinking, how important simplicity is to effectiveness, and that simplicity is very hard to do, and it's easy to make things complex. And so I guess my career up to this point has been obviously learning, trying different things, but then like, you know, running after all these shiny objects, like implement this, implement this, implement this, you know, try this, try that. And then you like pull back and you're like, whoa, I'm on like 6 softwares. I'm on, you know, it's like
fragmentation.
Yeah, it's just, and so now we're at that point to where I'm saying I need you guys' help with 2 things. These are like the 2 components that are going to take us to the next level. The one is, the first question out of our mouth needs to always be, is this in the best interest of the customer? Like, because that tends to be the last question that gets answered. Well, our process, like, this is easier for us. And I feel like if you look at successful companies like Apple and all that, you know, like Amazon, they always ask customer first and they build backwards from there.
Yeah.
But that's so freaking hard to do, because it's like, right. And so it's easier said than done. So I'm trying, right? And then the second thing is simplicity. Like, we have to make things simple. Like, we're going through some of our processes, and I've heard great things about your process. Stuff in Lead Simple, by the way, bro.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
I'm excited to maybe look at that at some point.
Right on.
But it has to be simple. No, I was kidding. And I have to kill 3 other things.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But no, I'm stoked. Tell me how that's been going, by the way, too, because I've heard it's been dope.
It's been going. As you're telling me what you're telling me, I'm just thinking, yeah, let's meet you in green. You're going to adopt it. You can drop that on your team in the next L10. Like
Efficiencies the next quarter.
It's been going great, man. You know, we really doubled down on CRM for property management, and that was great. It was definitely a slog, but we got to a position of effectively kind of being the default gold standard in the industry, if I can be so bold as to say that. But what I realized along the way is that most PMs, because it's a recurring revenue business, they want to grow, but at the same time, if they don't, life is still good. You know, like it's recurring revenue. That's the blessing and curse of the industry. And so what that means is that sales and marketing is definitely more aspirational than like a hardcore focus for a lot of these companies. They're not operationalized there. But everybody cares about ops. Everybody has intention and focus, and just your day-to-day life is ops. So it was a natural progression for us to go from the point of contract signing to property onboarding, owner onboarding, leasing, etc. But it was a slog. It was like a 2-year build cycle for us to actually be able to build the tech to support that. We got through it, and we came out, and we're pushing that to our user base, and it's going really, really well. And it's given me a ton of energy, because I'm back in this cycle. I'm kind of climbing an initial hill, plateauing, some boredom creeps in, some sense of uselessness, because I'm not a dev. I'm not the product guy. I'm not a PM. And you've seen what I've done, man. You know, go start PM Pro, go start Profit Coach, go start RentScale, etc. Did that, got those things pushed off. Excited, a lot of excited stuff going down there. But now it's like, okay, I'm coming back to my roots, and I got this big bone and this exciting thing, and I am dog on bone. It's a lot of fun.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I love that. The uselessness, that's funny. I can relate to that. So that's a really profound insight that you guys had. I mean, that's smart. That like what you just said, that's so true. Like most PMs, you know, sales and marketing, you know, it's a recurring revenue business, but everybody loves the ops. So you went where, like, give the people what they want, right? That's super smart. I love it.
I think it was a Dan Kennedy anecdote that Jeremy shared with me, where the question was basically, if you could have one competitive advantage in your business, what would it be? And everybody in the room gives a different answer. And the right answer, according to him, was a hungry market. Above all else, just look for a hungry market. A hungry market will pull things out of you. And that was really the insight. You know, do you want to be a painkiller, or do you want to be a vitamin?
Yeah.
And life is just easier.
And you guys were able to, I mean, Lead Simple is a great name. And you guys were able to make the gold standard because it is so simple and it's so user friendly. So if you can take that in, like that's maybe one of your guys' special powers, is like making really simple, like, cause I mean, there's so many different process things out there, but like everyone says they're using Process Street, and then you like, I've talked to
Yeah,
people and then they dive
right,
in and
right,
they're like,
right.
they're not using it. It's like, or they're using, like Podio just like sounds so like complex to me. Like I just can't wrap my head around that. But a lot of people say it's great, but whatever, just a simple solution, man. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know about you, man, but my experience is things come in waves to the shores of PM, right? Like every couple of years, there's like the new hotness, the new thing, and some people jump on and they talk it up, and some people wait. I feel like that happened with self showings. I feel like that happened with like using video in your marketing at one point. I feel like that happened with some of this automation tech. And so now everybody is aware of it, but like finding folks that really have it dialed in and using it well in a robust capacity that didn't cost $100,000 and take 3 years to implement is rare. And so it felt like there was still opportunity, a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, pretty sure you know who it is. And he was saying that some of the most profitable companies he saw were like still on basic like stuff. They didn't have all the tech, like the 50
Yeah.
tech platforms. And I think, at least in my head, if I could rewind the time, I thought tech was going to save us, or like was going to be the thing that ultimately like got us to where we needed to go. And that's why we jump on all these things, or I don't know. It's just, but like the less softwares you can use. So like if someone's already using Lead Simple, for instance, like how great
Yeah.
to not have to like add another stack there. But yeah. And then you referenced uselessness, and that's funny. I was talking to someone about that too. And, um, you know, some of the visionary role stuff, you can be like, is this acceptable for me to just be like sitting here thinking about? But then, you have that feeling. But then this friend of mine was telling me, he's like, yeah, but you're always thinking about the business. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like
Dude,
other
so
people aren't,
true.
you always are. And so that, you know what I mean?
I mean, like imagine like accurate time tracking as a founder. What a
Yeah.
joke. Like, do I put the timer on like when I'm in the shower, like looping on it, you know? It's just like it's silly.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I don't know. Like someone needs to sit still, someone needs to be reading, someone needs to be thinking about stuff. But sometimes that feels like a wasted time, or I'm not achieving stuff. But I think that's part of the process and it's important. So I try to embrace it.
I feel like I'm looping again through EOS to appreciate the visionary integrator distinction. And it's all anecdote, but I heard somebody say the other day, just describing the visionary, that 1 in 20 of their ideas are good. And
Yeah.
that sounds almost kind of like insulting at first, but it's like, no, that's probably true. I have so many ideas that sounds about right. And that iteration cycle, like honoring the iteration cycle of having all those ideas by creating space for them is what gets you the one or two good ones.
Yeah. Do you have an integrator at Lead
I
Simple?
I have a I have two co-founders that functionally sit in that seat, and now we're clear on what it actually means. We're working on whether or not they will formally hold that title, but functionally, they've always sat in that seat, and they're very much, the opposite of me in terms of temperament and style, much more integrator-like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think it's interesting. I'm asking around and trying to find, can the integrator role be kind of like a different subset of skills, give or take, depending on the visionary? Like, should the integrator more complement the visionary versus just be this, like, this is an integrator and it's like
Uniform role.
yeah.
That's a really good question.
Because I've talked to some different people. I talked to an integrator at a $10 million plus company, and he was saying like it's important that they complement your skills. Like he's like, I would make a list of like the skill set you want them to have, like, and how it kind of relates to maybe like your shortcomings or what you, and so it's interesting because as it evolves from, like, a lot of times the integrator is just like the person that runs ops, but then it's not, like, there's another level to it. It's when they're become more responsible for P&L, and they're really like getting everyone in alignment on the team and like really cheerleading and getting clarity. So yeah, but I think I'm like rereading Rocket Fuel, and it's got me all jazzed up because I'm really trying to get like dialed in on like what the right integrator role is.
I like that. One of my business partners is really big on always writing the scorecard before you hire, and that's not metrics driven purely. A lot of it is just like characteristics and behavior, and I think that's always a great starting point. I'm learning to do that more. If I didn't have that though, and I'm just emoting, when I think about an integrator, I think about a person that handles the hairy things that come up in the hard conversations. They're part empathizer, they're part hatchet man, they're 100% the person that's willing to detangle a big ball of string for some hairy problem where oftentimes the visionary would just tap out. Like, I'm so good over here, but I cannot do that. I cannot solve this simple financial or HR related problem. That's kind of what's in my mind's eye. If you were just like emoting or talking through it, what do you think of when you think integrator?
Yeah, someone that harmoniously can get everyone on the team like working towards a goal. Someone with a high emotional intelligence. Someone that's like mature, like very like not like rigid or like unfeeling, but just like very like strong emotionally and strong maturity. And someone that builds process, like is very process oriented and like so some things that come to mind there. But yeah, interesting. So to change gears for a second, coming in at the end of the year, November, like what was your intention going into 2020? And like how are you looking at 2021 now?
That's a great question. I had goals. I had goals for the year. I've hit 2 out of 4, and one of them I've kind of resigned myself to not hitting, and another one is kind of on the fence. I feel like it was a pretty good year, and overall, I mean, all things being considered, man, I'm super grateful. I have a lot of gratitude going on right now. I don't know about you, but going to like strategic coach meetings, for example, and just hearing what's going on to other people and kind of the worst case scenario, like it's pretty bad out there. So it didn't go exactly as planned, but it also wasn't that far from what I thought it would be like. There was a lot of restructuring. There was a lot of preparation, and then reaping the fruit of that, let's say, in the last half of the third quarter. So yeah, I can't say it's that far off from what I thought it would be in terms of the material outcomes, even though the feel and the vibe was absolutely crazy at times. And I was panicking like a lot of people in, let's say, March.
Yeah. And so are you thinking about next year? Have you done any next year planning, or like just on a personal and professional level, like where's your head at for this next year?
I'm thinking that COVID is going to keep going on through 2021. I mean, in terms of whether or not COVID is going to be impactful, my assumption is that the status quo is going to be the same, and we're all going to fight and go back and forth about vaccines, et cetera. But that the safe assumption for me is that 2021 will be like Q4 of 2020. I'm not assuming that has business impact. That is no longer an excuse by any stretch of the imagination. I've started, and I'm in the middle of my year-end strategic planning. I'm basically doing all the prep right now, and then the decisions will be solidified in stone in the middle of December. How about you?
Yeah, I love that. So 2020, I still have it on my whiteboard in my garage. I wrote 2020, my word for the year was enjoy. And that was
savor it.
Yeah, right. And that was before COVID, obviously. But it's kind of ironic because it was enjoy as long as everything goes well. Like it was enjoy, right? And maybe that was a precursor. So, I tried to roll with the punches, but it's interesting because I'm going into 2021 now, being like, okay, well, you said enjoy, and then some shit happens. So like, what should this year be? I kind of like the theme for each year. And I think this year it's like being, it's like really just going back to my roots of like focusing on being first. Like without being well, the doing is futile, and you can do and do and do, and it doesn't it doesn't like really get you anywhere. Like you overvalue the future moment for, you know, the actual present. That's why I love that you're in gratitude, because that's always a great reminder. Man, I recently um was talking to, I was in kind of like a little mastermind, not a mastermind, but just like some local people in business, and we were sharing some hard time stuff, and like, you know, like highs and lows. And man, everyone that, you know, I forget that, I think Britt Hume said, one of the people, I think it was on Fox News or something, said this quote that like everyone you know has something going on that like you know nothing about, or something like that. I can't remember who said that, but like I said what I thought was like my low, and it like wasn't even close. Like what other, like people losing family members, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, man, just trying to stay grounded. I really think that's where my next huge opportunity and revitalization is going to come from.
I feel like what part of the conversation I have with you is acknowledging and paying homage to the things that we've already talked about and learned that were profound and that are worth coming back to. And that distinction of do, have, be versus be, have, do. Endless value to loop through that over and over again. I don't know about you, but I can only do so much doing before I lose sight of the being. Like the more doing I'm doing, the more effort is required for me to reset and pause to reflect. Otherwise, I do start to just get kind of manic and compulsive.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, there's like some bellwethers in my life. Do you have any, like, is there those things in your life you tell yourself, when I'm doing this, I know I'm in a good state, and when I'm not doing this, it's kind of like an alarm bell?
Physical exercise would be one for me.
Yeah.
Anything restful, spending time with the kids and the family. When I start making up, I don't have time for exercise. I don't have time to talk to friends. I don't have time to be with my kids. Like we're well down the nosedive at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Listening to music is one for me, and playing music. Like if I don't listen to music, I'm usually not every day, but just like if I go long stretches where I'm just podcasting or I'm just like audibling and I'm not like listening to music, like music's a good one for me.
That is a great one. I love that.
Like last night I sent you guys some songs, and I was just in this like freaking, I was like, dude, by the way, Wolf or whatever you sent me.
Wolfpack.
Dude, Wolfpack, I love that band now, bro.
Oh.
Dude.
Damn, we should go see them. I mean, next time it ever happens, we should go see them live somewhere.
Dude, let's go do it. 100%. I love finding bands, or like when friends refer bands or whatever that you've never heard of, and then they're like playing Madison Square Garden or some shit.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
like, all
exactly.
these fucking people know this band. Like, I've never even heard of this band. I mean, granted, I'm not like a big music like junkie. Like I like playing my own music, but like a lot of people search new music out all the time, and I love those people. But I texted my friend today, man. I'm like, dude, make me a playlist. I'll make you one, man. I need some like new songs right now, man.
Brilliant. I love it. What's your relationship look like with your own music right now? You've been playing. I know that you ebb and flow with that.
Yeah, man. So I feel like when COVID happened, it slowed down a little bit, and there was, I don't know, I kind of feel like there was this collective kind of pain body around like the kind of the whole like collective, that it just hit my creativity. And I say that because it kind of like happened at once where I was like, I don't feel like playing like right now. So kind of took a hiatus, and then, but I was still playing, still dabbling, but just I got back engaged in work, and it got me really, not like in a bad way, like in an excited way. And so I kind of stopped playing as much, but a couple other things happened. I got really tired of like Instagram and social media, like completely turned off from it. Like where I was just like, I think I'm over this, you know, like, I don't know. Not that it's a, I try not to come off as like this. There's nothing worse than like a social media anti who's like, you should get off social media. So I'm definitely not going down that path, but just for me, the
At
Gestalt
this
method,
moment,
the Gestalt method or whatever, like my experience is that it provides very little value, but it disguises itself as like delivering a lot of value. So like, it keeps you engaged. Like, oh, my friends are on here. Like, I have to be on here for music. Like, but if you like get really still for like a half day, I realized that I didn't need it. So anyway, I've been doing less. But actually, what's really interesting is after the election, when they announced Joe Biden, I was like, I want to play music again. Like, like
just flipped it for you.
yeah, and it has nothing to do, like, I actually preferred Trump, but it was kind of a win-win for me because I always was on the fence with Trump a little bit because although I agreed with a lot of his policies and way more than Biden, he didn't do being right. He was an asshole. And if you're not being like being, if, and that's my like shtick is like, you have to have the being before doing, unless it's like running a country, because that's all ego based crap. And like, so like, I was kind of like, and I don't know, I feel like one side of the aisle kind of like, okay, we lost, like, okay, blah, 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 we move on. But like, everyone really hated Trump. So like, I was kind of happy for all the people that like have been so angry. Like, it's like, so
Cathartic release.
yeah, man. So I don't know, like, to answer your question in a really long rambling way, I'm like back more excited now. I actually just released a new track. I'll send it to you. It's I think it comes out like today. So
Dope.
yeah.
Dope.
Yeah, man.
Ride the wave, man. That's the way I think about it. You know, just riding the wave. I like that. I think we both have that style, and it can feel like it conflicts with like perseverance and discipline, etc. Because I feel like discipline is like, okay, you go out on the water and you just paddle. Big wave, small wave, doesn't matter. You just paddle. Whereas like riding the wave is like, okay, like, you know, you gotta, as it comes, you get up on the board and you flow. And if it's not coming, like, you know, you wait, you have some patience. And I'm definitely a ride the wave kind of guy. Talking about feeling useless earlier, I don't sit around and beat my head against the wall. Like, I know my value, I know my worth and my energy, and knowing myself gives me more freedom and permission to be able to have some diversity in where I place my bets and where I place my attention, instead of, you know, just following like the dogged persistence on one thing come hell or high water, which it has its own merits, but it can also have a lot of dogma with it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. It's funny. I was talking to my wife. I want to ask you about this because, so it's, you know, you get these weird like ideas in your head where you're like, okay, if I do this, that means I'm going to be like, I'm like winning. Like that means I'm living up to who I think I am. Right. And one of these weird things that has always like really appealed to me in like a really strange way is like a trip a quarter, like a family trip a quarter. Like, like if you go back through strategic coach journals and dumb shit, like I'm always writing like a trip a quarter. And then I was thinking about that. I'm like, because if I do that, then I'm like being successful, or I'm, you know, that's what I should, you know, I don't know. Like, so anyway, I had a reminder for that in my phone to like, oh, do a trip or something. Or it might've even been a date night. Like I had like a regular reminder for like, hey, have we had a date night? And then that popped up and I asked Cora, I was like, hey, let's do it. Do you want to do a date night? Let's do a date night. And she like saw it was on my phone and she was all beep, boop, beep, boop. She like imitated like a robot because she makes fun of me for shit like that, because it's like, it's not as, maybe she's laughing because it's not as like maybe
authentic
or authentic. It's like, oh, date night, boop, 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 right? And so, and it says like your partner is always your greatest teacher. And so like, I deleted the reminder. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's so much better just to like, hey, do we need a date night? I don't know, but like,
it could have been worse, man. It could have, the reminder could have been like, give wife kiss. Hey, babe, come here.
Right, right. But does that resonate with you? Do you have any things like that where you feel like if you don't hit those things, you're like not being successful and you maybe automate it or like too much? Or is that,
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to my wife today. So I went on a date with my wife earlier today for a little breakfast spot. And as we were going, I was like describing, like, in my current state of thinking, what are the things that would need to happen for me to feel like truly successful? Like, I was like just on that tip. And when I hit those things, it'll be a new list of things. And it is kind of a weird exercise. I think me, you, and Clint were sharing that quote from somewhere that said something to the effect of that thinking that you're going to feel happy at some point in the future when something happens is just like a way to keep yourself depressed.
mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of feel about a lot of that stuff. I heard you say a long time ago, I've already won. And I forget that. But when I sit down and I think about it, I still firmly believe that. I've already won. And the thought of myself as a kid, have you ever like heard that exercise about like relating to yourself like when you were 5?
No, I don't think so.
The exercise is basically, if you think about your kid right now and talking to them the way that you talk to yourself, in terms of putting much of pressure on them or guilt or shame or disappointment, you'd feel terrible, like you would never do it. So why do you treat yourself that way? And that's actually been really helpful and useful to me. It's not to remove pressure to create ambition, but it is a good reminder to just be kind to myself rather than saying, well, you know, if you do these things, it'll be great, but you're kind of less than today.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's so easy to forget like what a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old must be thinking, you know? And trying to impose like your way of view. It's funny. Tole says like parents like that's a role you play as a parent, which is like obviously a role you need to play, but a lot of times it becomes I know what's best for you, and I know what's best for you becomes less and less true the older they get.
So true. Yeah.
But, you know, it's like because they need to become their own people, and it's funny. And it's probably hard, you know. Like I know my dad still like struggles with that, where he's like tells me like, "Oh, you need to do this," or like my sister, like, "You need to do this." I know it comes from a place of love, but it's like at a certain point, it's like we're pretty much almost 40, you know. I don't know if that hasn't happened yet. I don't think that's gonna happen now. But I know you mean well.
Yeah.
Love you, Dad, if you're listening. But
yeah, what a trip to make that transition, you know, like identifying with being able to still see clearly a lot of that parental behavior that's seems unhelpful, and yet knowing that invariably some of it I will start doing to I either am, well, that's what it actually is actually heavy. I already am doing some things that are unhelpful. I already probably have done some things that they'll remember when they're, you know, 20 or 30 that were negative, and knowing I'm going to do more of it. That's actually a thought to me that can be like really heavy. And if I let myself go there, and I've got to balance responsibility with also recognizing I don't have complete control, and there's going to be a lot of outcomes that are going to take place for my kids, some of which will be negative, that I can't stop and I'm just not responsible for. I don't know. It's like a trip, the dichotomy there. You feel me?
yeah. It's it is a trip. I want to ask you about something else. Did I talk to you about writing down stressful thoughts when you wake up in the morning?
We did talk about it briefly.
Yeah. So it's weird, like there's some thoughts, like as I get more into like the spiritual realm and like, you know, you're not your thoughts and whatnot, but there's some thoughts that are just so recycled, like garbage BS, like thoughts that everyone, well, first off, I love how Byron Katie points out that all thoughts are recycled. There's no new stressful thought, right? Like everyone has the same BS stressful thoughts. And so I finally got an aha moment when I was reading Eckhart Tolle the other day about this. And he was saying like, some of the thoughts are just like part of like the egoic mind structure that like everybody has. Like, it's just like, you don't need to beat yourself. So like a common one for me is like, oh, I ate too much. Like I'm like full, like, you know, I ate too much food or whatever. It's like, and like I'm fat, like I'm getting fat. Like I'm not worth, you know, I'm not looking as good as I should look or something. That's just like part of a collective mind structure that like has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? Like, and you could say that about different things. So it's just really interesting because it's helped me separate from like, oh yeah, that's just like the background noise of BS that we all deal with as humans. I'm not gonna like entertain that.
It has more to do with the human condition
Yeah,
than your circumstances.
exactly.
Yeah, when I entertain these thoughts, I come and I interact with the wavelength of thought that you're describing. And it's not where I sit predominantly, but I have an affinity for it. And so I would say I'm still in that curious rather than the committed phase. But when I do interact, I'm simultaneously fascinated, but also there is a part of me that's horrified of just really grappling with the mind and how much of a hassle the mind and like consciousness can be, you know, to know there's like this thing in the back of the brain that provides these compulsive thoughts, many of which are not useful and lead to negative outcomes. That thought, I think the one thought I have is like, it's just exhausting. Why does it have to be that?
Yeah.
How did we wind up here that like enlightenment is this life's quest rather than the default of the norm?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like Tolle says, like he doesn't have an ego, but that's not some big achievement. It's simply just realizing like you're not the thoughts in your head, but like everything exists in your mind. So that's like, it has a lot of work to do. Like the mind, like without the story you're telling yourself about everything, things are just as they are. So mine definitely that has a lot of work to do, but it is exhausting for sure. And it's easy to get wrapped up in the stories that we tell ourselves.
I gotta pivot back for you. Kids' activities. How much thought have you given to this? You got the basics. So you got the basics. You got the things circumstantially close to you because of what's in your area, or your wife's cousin's friend is like a gymnast instructor, blah blah blah. And then there's the full panoply of what you could do. You could have your 10-year-old like interning in banking and finance or whatever. You know, like the true list is pretty broad, pretty out there. My oldest is 6, and so about to turn 6. So I feel like it's like I'm really there in either needing to say, you know, either we're not going to do any activities, I'm anti-activity, unschooling, blah, 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 or we're going to embrace some. Me and my wife are leaning towards embracing some, and we're kind of working through that. Have you given any thought to this thus far? What are you guys thinking about activities?
Yeah. So I'm behind you because I only have my son's 2, so I'm not quite there yet. So I'll just speak from experience of what I've thought about. And I think I'm going to try to figure out what he's into, right? And then nurture that, which by the way was a complete like shock to me. So you're like me in a lot of regards, in the sense that like we go to books for things, right?
Totally.
So I read a parenting book when Miles, like, I don't even know if he was born yet. He might have been like an infant. And this book was like, you don't like live your life through your kid. Don't push them into things you want them to do. Like figure out what they want to do and nurture that. And I'm like, holy shit, that's freaking awesome. I wouldn't have thought of that. Like,
and you probably like already had like a little guitar like in his room.
Totally. Totally. Hey, it doesn't mean I don't still have one in there, but you know, I'm not like taping it to his hands. But anyway, so yeah, that was kind of like an aha. So that's where I go with this. For instance, my best friend Ryan, his son is 5. Yeah, I think Brad's 5. Yeah, he's 5 years old. he loves baseball, like randomly, like he saw like a baseball game and like he loves Jackie Robinson. And so like this was completely not pushed on by Ryan at all. So Ryan's like doing a really good job of like nurturing that and like, okay, cool. Like,
Oh,
yeah, like let's get you into baseball. And like, you know, and if he
yeah.
falls out of that, I remember that was something that I always like felt bad about when I was younger for some reason. Like, oh, I fell out of interest of things. Like, you got to stick with
Yeah.
one thing. Like maybe that was a FOMO
Yeah.
thing, like, you know, my dad or my mom. But yeah, I'm excited to just kind of go flow state with him and just, you know, and I'll see if hopefully I can pull it off. It's probably easier said than done, but just nurturing the stuff that he's interested in.
I dig it. I like that. I mean, that does presuppose that it's obvious. And I think maybe the things that are obvious are more like temperament or initial reaction to something. It's not going to be obvious. I mean, at least for me, it's not obvious that they are necessary. I have girls, so it's more like she's been really interested in ballet for the little bit that we've done. So that may be something we keep rolling with, you know, looking at gymnastics. But
Yeah, what's wrong with
yeah,
ballet? If she's
there's
interested in ballet.
absolutely nothing. Absolutely, you know, honestly, I probably do have. If I'm being honest, I probably do have some baggage about it, thinking it's a little prissy, a little elitist, etc. But I don't know. A lot to think through. I feel I'm super cognizant of how much influence I wield in the defaults that I provide, and so I just want to be thoughtful about it. But it's a privilege, and it's probably like the highlight of my life in a lot of ways. Being a dad, like there's just so much joy that comes from it, man. It makes me super grateful every day.
Yeah, man, for sure. And like with the case of my friend Ryan, like yeah, his son, it's easy, right? If your kid happens to just like love baseball, that's easy. But like what if there's nothing that obvious? I would say like it's always usually somewhat obvious, like the types of things they're interested in. Like for instance, my son, like he, at least so far, he hasn't shown much interest in like art, like coloring, like drawing, where some kids like love that shit. But he loves to throw his body around. So I would probably like, hey, let's try a gymnastics class or something and see if you like that,
Taekwondo.
you know, or like whatever, you know what it is. So yeah, man, it's but as far as activities too, that's something I'm trying. So I've been really focused on this word transformational. Um
Oh,
and and it really like lights me up. And the where this came from was about a month ago. Had I reached out to someone in my industry who, you good on time? You got a few more minutes?
yes.
Okay. I reached out. I had a broker working for me doing sales. It didn't work out. So anyway, I was doing the sales and I'm like, yeah, I don't like doing sales. And it's just like, it's not the best use of my time right now.
Yeah.
So, but before I hire someone else, like, let me just see if I can find a really badass referral partner. And so I went to this guy in my industry who I really admired his company and his marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, yeah, let's hop on a Zoom call. Let's talk shop. So anyway, I hopped on a Zoom call and I went into this call thinking like, okay, if I can get like 40% referral fee, and if he agrees to like this, then like this. Anyway, I ended up like being like soul brothers with this guy. Like, and the funny thing is he was like, we were talking about Buddhism and all this like stuff. So anyway, we were kind of like gelling on things we were into. And then I was like, oh, and you know, so back to the business side, like, so I was thinking if I could get like 40%, and he was like, whoa, bro, like when you just started talking about money, like that just really dipped the conversation. He's like, did you feel that? He's like, did you feel that?
Oh my goodness! Whoa.
It was really funny. I'm not saying like this guy's like my best friend forever, like, but it was
I
like
wish this was recorded. This is like the epitome of like a SoCal business moment.
yeah, right, totally. But anyway, where I'm going with this is he's like, the money's fucking bullshit, right? He's like, the money, like it's bullshit. Like nobody, like you have enough money, I'm sure. Like the money is bullshit. It's like it's about the impact, and it's about, I'm interested in creating, you know, building transformational relationships that have an exponential return on human capital. Like I'm interested, and like anyway, I went into this call like so transactional, and I
Yeah.
left the call transformational. Like I was like, yeah, fucking, I don't even know what he's paying me on like these first couple deals. I'm like, just like whatever is like, let's just do like what makes sense depending on the deal. Because whatever, if he screws me over, whatever, that's like two deals. If it works out, great. But so like, I don't know, there's this opportunity in every instance, whether it's like a podcast with you or getting off work and sitting on the couch with your kid versus maybe just like going for a walk. Like there's a way to make everything transformational versus transactional. And for me, transactional is like, okay, well, I'm tired. What's in it for me? Like, where's the money coming from? Okay, now that we're done transacting, get out of my way. And transformational is all about selflessness. It's like, you're more important to me than me because you are me. And what I do to you, I do to me. And it's in my best interest to forget my own self-interest.
Steve, that's a lot to leave us with. That's a lot to wrap up on. Folks, if you're listening at home, I suggest you rewind that and re-listen a couple times. That was a great summation of my aspiration on my best days. That was a great summation of my aspiration in business. Thank you for sharing that.
For sure, brother. It's good to talk to you, man.
As always, man. Be well, stay strong, stay you. See you on the flip side.
Peace.